Okay, so being somebody that thoroughly investigated what I'm about to read, it's kind of what led to my mental breakdown. Because after being a parent for over 10 years during a dirty custody dispute for someone to win in the family court, what I found a trick that, abusive parents play, because it is abuse. Parental alienation is child abuse. No matter what people say or when they call it junk science, like anybody that's going through a nasty child custody case, I highly recommend Dr. Childress. But anyway, so CPS starts coming to my door, which never happened before my abusive ex wanted to leave the state. And I found out that, these abusive parents, because they are, like, a child should have the right to love both of their parents, and they shouldn't be, made to feel like they're not allowed to love both of their parents. All it takes is an anonymous phone call, and you can have DSS at your ex's door. So it's a dirty tactic. All you have to do is make up some false allegations. You can have DSS at their door. I had DSS at my door 5 times. All charges against me were dropped. But around the 3rd time, I felt like I'm a good parent. I never hurt my kids. Like, I don't have anything to worry about. Like, DSS or CPS, it's normally a 3-letter abbreviation. They only go after, like, bad parents, and that's a misconcept in a lot of people's heads. What I stumbled upon when I started Googling them was the Nancy Schaefer report. Nancy Schaefer is absolutely my hero. And what I found out was Atlanta is number 2 for human trafficking. Washington, D.C. is number 1 for human trafficking. When they want to say that Pizzagate isn't real, go read the WikiLeaks email from John Podesta and look at his artwork and tell me that there isn't some fishy stuff going on. And how is it the owner of Comet Ping Pong is one of the most powerful men in Washington, and he's just the owner of a pizza parlor. But yet, and it always happens like this. It'll get me on a tangent. I'm about to read the report, though. Some crazy white guy, I'm sure he had blue eyes. It's always that. It's a crazy white guy with blue eyes. They did the same thing with fucking Kennedy. And if you think that Kennedy was really just killed by some crazed man, or let's go to Las Vegas, where it's not even possible. If you don't think the news is full of bullshit, I never buy in. Anytime something sounds suspicious to me, I go and do my research. 96% of the internet is owned by the same people that own all of our magazines, all of our news outlets. You know how everybody's like, why is everybody so anti-Semitic? It's not about that. The real victims in the Holocaust, it was more affluent Jewish people. The Rothschilds, go research that shit. If you don't think you're being brainwashed in America, this report is phenomenal. She was a senator in the state of Georgia. So like I said, Atlanta is number 2 for human trafficking. Washington is number 1 for human trafficking. It's like I forget how they do the statistics, but percentage compared to the people around, like it ends up being number 1. Atlanta's number 2. What I found out was here in the corrupt old state of South Carolina, because we are very corrupt. I mean, we executed the youngest black boy ever in history. He was 14 years old. And when you look into that case, there's no way humanly possible that this 14-year-old boy that was all of 90 pounds raped and murdered 2 little white girls. Poor boy, oh, it breaks my heart. He used his Bible as his booster seat when they fried his fucking brains out. And when I started seeing the filth that I was seeing in South Carolina, when I did my research, because I am somebody that is pretty freaking intelligent, I don't have a degree, but let me do some research, I can find some shit out. You know what the inmates told me? Be afraid. Be very afraid if DSS is ever at your door, because before you know it, they will take your child either to, I want to say they said Charlotte or Atlanta, Georgia. We had, and I accidentally said in one video, a 17% increase in the foster care. No, we had a 17 times increase in the millions of dollars in the money flow. 17 times. And I tracked it down to a certain House of Representatives that's #1 family court attorney that was involved in my children's custody case. Yeah, I know my fucking money. Like I said, I worked for the biggest cocaine dealer in the state of Florida. When I was young, I learned a fucking lot from that man, and I had great respect for him. But please listen to the Nancy Schaefer report. And it is hard to get through this. She was murdered. Shortly after this report, she had another documentary that nobody's been able to get their hands on. She had a whole movie about the pedophilia ring going on. And it started with the Safe Homes and Family Acts that was started by the Clintons back in 1997. And if you don't want to think that woman's the fucking devil, go watch Clinton's Cash. Andrew Breitbart was an amazing man. My introduction into Child Protective Service cases was due to a grandmother in an adjoining state who called me with her tragic story. Her 2 granddaughters had been taken from her daughter who lived in my district. Her daughter was told wrongly that if she wanted to see her children again, she should sign a paper and give up her children. Frightened and young, the daughter did. I have since discovered that parents are often threatened into cooperation of permanent separation of their children. The children were taken to another county and placed in foster care. The foster parents were told wrongly that they could adopt the children. The grandmother then jumped through every hoop known to man in order to get her granddaughters. When the case finally came to court, it was made evident by one of the foster parents' children that the foster parents had at any given time 18 foster children, and that the foster mother had an inappropriate relationship with the caseworker. In the courtroom, the juvenile judge acted as though she was shocked and said the 2 girls would be removed quickly. They were not removed. Finally, after much pressure being applied to the Department of Family and Children Services of Georgia, DFCS, it's all the same, CPS, DSS, it's a little abbreviation. The children were driven to South Georgia to meet their grandmother, who gladly drove to meet them. After being with their grandmother 2 or 3 days, the judge quite out of the blue wrote up a new order to send the girls to their father, who previously had no interest in the case and who lived on the West Coast. The father was in adult entertainment. His girlfriend worked as an escort, and his brother, who also worked in the business, had a sexual charge brought against him. Within a couple of days, the father was knocking on the grandmother's door and took the girls kicking and screaming to California. The father developed an unusual relationship with the former foster parents and soon moved back to the Southeast and the foster parents began driving to the father's residence and picking up the little girls for visits. The oldest child had told her mother and grandmother on 2 different occasions that the foster father molested her. This shit will make you sick when you fucking know. Go research pedogate. Yeah, they called it Pizzagate to dismiss a legitimate thing. Pedogate, it was the world's largest pedophilia website that the FBI cracked in 2016. More child pedophilia, molesters have been arrested in Trump's presidency than ever happened in Obama's presidency. To this day, after 5 years, this loving, caring, blood relative grandmother does not even have visitation privileges with their children. The little girls are, in my opinion, permanently traumatized, and the young mother of the girls was so traumatized with shock when the girls were first removed from her that she never recovered. It will fucking break your heart. Throughout this case and through the process of dealing with multiple other mismanagement cases of the Department of Family and Children's Services, DFCS, I have worked with other desperate parents and children across the state because they have no rights and no one with whom to turn. I have witnessed ruthless behavior from many caseworkers, social workers, investigators, lawyers, judges, therapists, and other such, all those who pick up the children. I was stunned by what I have seen and heard from victims all across the state of Georgia. In this report, I am focusing on the Georgia Department of Family and Children's Services, DFCS. However, I believe Child Protective Services nationwide has become corrupt and that the entire system is broken almost beyond repair. I am convinced parents and families should be warned of the dangers. The Department of Child Protective Services, known as the Department of Family Children's Services in Georgia and other titles in other states, has become a protected empire built on taking children and separating families. I'm about to get into the finances on this so you understand why. This is not to say that there are not those children who do need to be removed from wretched situations and need protection. This report is concerned with the children and parents caught up in legal kidnapping, ineffective policies, and DFCS who does not remove a child or children when the child is enduring torment and abuse. In one county in my district, I arranged a meeting for 37 families to speak freely and without fear. These poor parents and grandparents spoke of their painful, heart-wrenching encounters. Their suffering was overwhelming. They wept and cried. Some did not know where the children were and had not seen them in years. I had witnessed the Gestapo at work. Remember what the Gestapo was? So during the Holocaust, you had it ramped up in 3 phases. So it was, dirty police work. Then people are getting taken. They're shoved into the ghettos and getting taken. And then we have the Holocaust. What was horrible about the Holocaust? Nobody noticed until ashes, the ashes of the Jews burning, that it was going on. And it was very wealthy, affluent Jews that also paid for this shit. It is believed that Hitler, and I have read good documentation, that Hitler was an illegitimate child of the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds is a Jewish family, and they're the wealthiest family in the whole wide world. Shitload of money. Yeah, between 8 men, 5 of them Jewish. They have like something like 50% of the world's wealth, but it seems like that would be impossible for it to be that high, but I don't know. But I know that the 5 wealthiest men are Jewish. So when they're pushing out this anti-Semitic bullshit and shoving it down people's throat, they're not talking about victim Jews. Most of the Jews in America today, they never even went through the Holocaust shit. Trump's, Ivanka's husband, his lineage is a true victim Jew. And that's why we're starting to see stuff coming out from the Israelite Times. If you want to know what's going on, read the Israelite Times, and I love it, because the Israelite Times calls out Joe Benzo or Jeff Benzo and Mark Zuckerberg and all those others, and then all of a sudden on Wikipedia, it was funny because they used to claim their Jewish lineage to get sympathy from people. And when the Israelite Times started calling out their asses on Wikipedia, it just, it stopped talking about how they were Jewish, because the victim Jews are calling their asses out. They called out Jeff Benzo's ass, and they said, Jeff Benzo, since you have so much money, is there any way that you can donate money towards they're redoing like the museum and stuff for the Holocaust, because they're putting in the true facts of what the fuck really happened and how it was very wealthy, affluent Jews that were killing the other Jews in the ghetto. They've been doing that shit forever, killing their own. That's why you see these anti-Semitic speeches. But sorry, I'll get off topic in a minute. That's what's going on. Okay, so yeah, Gestapo. That's what started me on that tangent. I'm sorry. So the Gestapo were the dirty cops. Gestapo was stage 1 of the Holocaust. At work, I witnessed the Gestapo at work, and I witnessed the deceitful conditions under which children were taken in the middle of the night out of hospitals, off of school buses, and out of homes. In one county, a private drug testing business was operating within DFCS. We'll just call them CPS. So it's CPS. These abbreviations make it confusing. Department that required many drug tests from parents and individuals for profit. In another county, children were not removed when they were enduring the worst possible abuse. Due to being exposed, several employees in a particular CPS office were fired. However, they have now been rehired either in neighboring counties or in the same county. Again, according to the calls I am now receiving, the conditions in that county are returning to the same practice that they had before the light was shown on their deeds. What was weird about my case was they wanted a drug test. And I'm like, no problem. I don't do drugs. I like booze. I don't do drugs. After reading this report, I said, I'm going to a third-party lab. And they said, oh, well, you can't prove chain of custody then. I said, you want to try me? I've been in the medical field over 10 years working for laboratories. Yes, you can prove chain of custody. And it's funny because right after that, dropped my fucking case. Because I said, I don't trust you fuckers, and I definitely don't trust you to even touch my piss. Because I've read your finances 17 times in the millions of dollars going into the system in the past 8 years that this House of Representatives got his position. I'll get that motherfucker. Oh, he hated my YouTube. My YouTube got the attention of our state attorney, and it's funny because he's going after human trafficking too. So I did a whole video. I blew him kisses and everything. I was... See, sorry, I gotta let out my energy, because if I don't, then I'll go drink a beer and, just... I gotta let out my energy some way, and I wasn't able to go to the gym this morning. Having worked with probably 300 cases statewide, I am convinced there is no responsibility and no accountability in the system. I come to the conclusion that poor parents oftentimes are targeted to lose their children because they do not have the wherewithal to hire lawyers and fight the system. Being poor does not mean you are not a good parent and that you do not love your child, or that your child should be removed and placed with strangers. That all parents are capable of making mistakes, and that making a mistake does not mean your children are always to be removed from the home. Even if the home is not perfect, it is home, and that is where a child is the safest and where he or she wants to be with a family. That parenting classes, anger management classes, counseling referrals, therapy classes, and on are demanding of parents with no compassion by the system, even while they are at work and while their children are separated from them. This can take months or even years, and it emotionally devastates both children and parents. Parents are victimized by the system that makes a profit for holding children longer and bonuses for not returning children. That caseworkers and social workers are oftentimes guilty of fraud. They withhold evidence, they fabricate evidence, they seek to terminate parental rights. However, when charges are made against them, the charges are ignored. You know how many children in these group homes in South Carolina claim molestation and how it is always dropped? Oh, we found there was no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. Yeah, because they're not going to admit to raping them, or you have older children with younger children and they're all so traumatized that the older children are molesting the younger children. In these group homes, you would be fucking terrified when you read the allegations coming against the group homes. And like I said, I spent my time with the inmates for 30 fucking days. I have heard some stories. I spent my time with the Looney Tunes for tons of times with my Looney Tunes, okay? This shit is definitely going on. And if you ever look up, God, I wish I remembered the YouTube. I Googled it one day. It was CPS lying. They go and lie in front of a federal judge. And they're like, well, we didn't know if it was a lie that you couldn't submit it as evidence. And he's like, I love this judge. He just rips their ass apart. Basically, in my words, but how he was like, he had this look, he's like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. I know that's what was going through his mind, and he just rips into their asses. You thought that you could submit lies and fabricate evidence to take a child away? That's what the lawyer said to him. Oh, I was so glad when he just rips her ass apart. These little DSS lawyers. Oh yeah, and my guardian ad litem that was bribed in my custody case that I can factually prove, the attorney that they had in the DSS case, they were good friends. Yeah. And the judge that I had, she was part of the reason in the huge spike in just children getting taken left and right and put into the system in Spartanburg. She is no longer a judge, and I thank the Lord for that. And you know what, Kelly Pope Black, if you ever see this, go fuck yourself. I'll go burn your robe in a heartbeat because you're a cunt. Sorry, but that's just my honest feelings. Feels good to just let them out. I didn't hurt anybody. The most I did was make a YouTube video. That's factually true, so... I mean, people could debate the C word, but if you saw her... even other lawyers said that she was worst case of robitis ever. She was also getting children put into the system left and right. Huge spike in Spartanburg. Huge spike. She was the #1 judge to snatch up kids. Thank God for judges like Judge Rucker. I loved him. That the separation of families is growing as a business because local governments have grown accustomed to having taxpayer dollars to balance their ever-expanding budgets. That Child Protective Services and juvenile court can also hide behind a confidentiality clause in order to protect their decision and keep the funds flowing. There should be open records, court watches, look who is being paid. See, that's how they get away with so much shit. Is these are closed cases because they're abused children. So the public can't just go in and start requesting the evidence. And that's where they realized that they wanted to drop my case real fucking quick whenever I threw the Nancy Schaefer report and told them to just shove it up their ass. And they're like, oh shit. Like my black girlfriends will say, shit, Crystal's the blackest of all of us. You want to see crazy? I got some fucking crazy for you. But we'll just show it in this way. There are state employees, lawyers, court investigators, court personnel, and judges. There are psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, caseworkers, therapists, foster parents, adoptive parents, and so on. All are looking to the children in the state custody to provide job security. Parents do not realize that social workers are the glue that holds the system together, that funds the court, the child's attorney, and the multiple other jobs, including CPS attorneys. Yeah, these attorneys, because this is a thing. They have to provide an attorney, but it's an attorney that CPS pays for. So who do you think this attorney ultimately works for? They work for CPS. They don't give a shit about the parents for the most part. That the Adoptions and Safe Families Act set in motion by President Bill Clinton offered cash bonuses to the states for every child they adopted out of foster care. In order to receive the adoption incentives bonuses, local child protective services need more children. They must have merchandise, children that sell, and you must have plenty of them so the buyer can choose. Some counties are known to give $4,000 bonus for each child adopted and an additional $2,000 for special needs child. Employees work to keep the federal dollars flowing. And also, if you watch Carlos Morales, he will tell you some shit about them. Like, Carlos Morales is amazing. If you ever have CPS in your life, watch that man. He is just, I love him. That there is double dipping. The funding continues as long as the child is out of the home. When a child is in foster care and placed with new family, then adoption bonus funds are available. When a child is placed in a mental health facility and is on 16 drugs per day, like 2 children of a constituent of mine, more funds are involved. See? With each diagnosis of the child, you get more money. That there are no financial resources and no real drive to reunite a family and help keep them together. That the incentives for social workers to return children to their parents quickly after taking them has disappeared, and who in protective services will step up to the plate and say, this must end. Well, when she died, she didn't get to see that come to fruition. But Trump has changed a lot of laws behind this shit because this is what was fueling these pedophiles. Well, I gotta continue on my next video, so thank you, everybody.